and welcome to the Musica Sacra Project interview series. It is a pleasure to be back. If you like this content, please share, like, subscribe, and comment with any thoughts you have. And this really indicates to me to continue doing these interviews as long as feasibly possible. Secondly, the Musica Sacra Project is entirely run by your donations. It is with your donations that we can continue to strive to promote beautiful sacred music throughout the world. So head on over to the donation page on the website and you can pay via PayPal. Today I have with me Patrick McGuire, and he is the Director of Music at St. Anne and Joachim Church in Fargo, North Dakota, which I will one day get to, I hope. He has a Bachelor in Music Education from Concordia College and a Master's in Music from the University of Mary and a Certificate in Sacred Music. He is a respected conductor and clinician for sacred music workshops, I believe, in the state and across the country, and he is becoming a very renowned sacred music composer. It is a pleasure to have you on here today, Patrick.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Grace. I'm very happy to be here.
It's great. And for those who don't know, Patrick is so dedicated. He is doing this in an airport today, which is incredible. And it's just been so great to organize this interview with you because you're so eager, like myself, to share sacred music with the world.
Absolutely. It's easy. I mean, basically, the invitation to this conversation is let's connect over a shared passion, something that we're both very excited about. And just seeing your work from afar, I'm very excited about it. So the opportunity to have a conversation, it's like, oh my gosh, why wouldn't I want to come do this? So this is just great.
Yeah. One day I hope to be able to meet a lot of these wonderful people, especially in the USA, which I haven't been to yet. But there's just so much passion and great things happening over there. So it's always really great to at least connect via the interviews at least. To get us started, I really wanted to know, did you always want to be a sacred musician? Was this a passion where you were set from, graduating high school, or was it something that developed? What does this look like for the budding musician out there?
Yeah, I definitely not. This is not the trajectory that I expected myself to be on. Coming out of high school, I had a good idea. I wanted to be involved in music, and music education in particular seemed of great interest to me. So I went to school for that, got my bachelor's in vocal music education, and the dream was always just to be a high school choir conductor. And right out of college, I was teaching 6 through 12 choir at a local Catholic high school in Fargo, and I loved it. It was fantastic. And I was working at a private Catholic school too, so there was an element of liturgy there already. I was doing the school liturgies on a weekly basis, and of course I enjoyed that. It was one of those things that as a practicing Catholic, and as a musician, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. If you're musical and you're a practicing Catholic, you have a degree in music, you're probably going to end up involved in your local parish in some capacity, but, be a cantor or play piano or organ or something, but not formally as a job necessarily. So that was kind of how I always viewed it, is that I'll be a full-time high school choir teacher, and then I'll play at my parish on the weekends. I'll sing, and that'll be great. So getting to this point now where I'm fully invested as a full-time director of music at a Catholic parish, and also, doing what I'm doing now, I'm in an airport on my way to go give a sacred music workshop. This is really kind of wild, and it's wonderful in the best way. So I've really enjoyed this trajectory, but it definitely wasn't a straight line to get here. Although maybe not too adjacent, there's a lot of tie-in between the vocal music education world and what's going on over here. But there's definitely some differences that I didn't anticipate loving as much as I do at this point. So it's been wonderful to get into this world a lot more in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Your story reminds me, I won't name, of another friend, music director, and he loved jazz music, and he was going, yeah, I'll do jazz for X amount of years, and then I'll end up maybe in a sacred music job, but it really turned out that God called him right into being like a director of music, I think a lot faster than he anticipated. And I think that the thing is that the passion is there for that. And when you land this job, you realize, oh my gosh, this was the missing piece for
Sure.
like
Right.
so long. You're like, this is what I was called to do. So yeah, I
Right.
completely see that. And so you are the music director in Fargo. It was at St. Anne's and Joachim's Catholic Church. What was there before you came? Was the music program already established? Have you had to establish something? And like, I really want to let people know and show people like, what does your weekly or daily schedule look like? Well, obviously you're at an airport about to go to a workshop, so that's one thing. But yeah, what is that schedule? How, is there 3 days? Is it full on, and etc.
Right, right. So when I got started, we were just at the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic, and so a lot of things had kind of fallen down from what had been established. But I was fortunate that the person before me at the church really did a great job building up a strong music program by and large across the whole parish. The choir room at the church has 80 folder slots for the main parish choir, and they have filled them. So we're on our way back. We're working our way back to doing that. But I would say by the time I really got like settled in at the church, maybe 20 people in the parish choir might have been about the most that we would have managed right away, which was kind of depressing. Even when I had first come, there was maybe more like 40. So we built it back up now. I have about 55 people on the email list at this point, which, if anybody doesn't know, church choir math means if I have 55 people on my list, I maybe get 30 of them or 40 of them for a call. Everybody's just kind of all over the place. It's a volunteer gig, and that's how it goes. But no, it's a wonderful, wonderful parish. And like I said, a lot was really well established before I got there. So my job, I oversee obviously the main parish choir, call that the Holy Family Choir. Saints Anne and Joachim, of course, being the grandparents of Jesus, the parents of Mary. And so there's a great familial aspect to all that we do there. So the Holy Family Choir is that main ensemble of about 50 people. And then I have a chamber group called Voces Aeternae, Eternal Voices. And we premiere new works every single year, and we do Renaissance polyphony and chant. They're kind of like the ensemble I focus most of the traditional air music towards. And that's a group of about 10 to 12 people, kind of depending on what membership I can keep up in there. We have a children's choir. That was something that was only ever done on Easter and Christmas previously, but a couple of years ago, I instituted a full-time all throughout the year, all through the school year, I should say, children's choir. We got about 20 kids in that as well. And then we have a bell choir, handbell choir, and that was actually my first involvement at this parish. So I taught at the school after graduating from college, and right away came into the handbell choir director position just because, just like I had imagined, right? I'm going to be a high school choir director and I'll do something at the church. And that's what they had for me. I was like, oh, I've never touched a handbell in my life, but okay, I'll try this thing out. So I've been directing that group since 2016. So that's the group I've been with the longest over here at the parish. So I oversee all those four ensembles as like our four formal ensembles at the parish. And then we have about 20 cantors that will sing for different liturgies throughout each weekend, 10 accompanists. I can't believe I'm talking about a double-digit number there, but I have 10 different people that'll be playing for different services as well throughout the year. Yeah, it's I'm spoiled rotten. I really am. I'm the worst person to talk to if you have problems in sacred music of trying to recruit people, because I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't know, I have a lot of people. I'm a terrible person to visit with for that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, managing all of that, that's kind of that's the gig, right? So I have a lot of work to do to manage those ensembles, to plan their repertoire, and to rehearse them, and to assess, what can we do? Where do I push the envelope a little bit? Where do I need to coast a little bit more? I mean, there's so many little things like that happen. And then there's also just, little things that'll come up. Like I'll be putting together a small group. We have a parish penance service coming up here in Lent. And so I usually try to put together a small group for that. And there'll be a rehearsal that we'll have to have before then, and putting all that music together. And our parish has a contemporary praise and music night with adoration and such on Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of the month. And because that's my choir rehearsal night, I can't ever be there for that, but it's my job to rehearse and prepare everything for that. So I'm kind of, I see so many different aspects of what goes on in the parish music realm. If there's any racket being made and a holy noise in the church, I'm somehow responsible for it. So there's a lot of things that go into preparing that, managing that, and working with people to get them there. And as part of that too, it really is, training people. That you don't just get people to just step in and just do this like that. Like there are some of those people, and I love them. They're fantastic. They make my job a lot easier. But I would say most people that are involved in the parish music program are exactly what you might expect, is just your typical parishioner that maybe has some musical background and whatnot, but they might need a little help to be a cantor by themselves or to play the organ or something. And so a lot of my work has been to coach people up and to work with them one-on-one, even just to kind of get them to a place where they feel confident to add their voice. And so, yeah, all those things, and typical parish office life stuff as well, parish events, being a part of the office
Mhm.
team, all that sort of thing too. So it's a lot.
All the administration that no one realizes, the piles of emails, the choosing music, the maybe hunting
Yeah.
down something because you're like, let's not keep doing the same thing. So you start hunting for 3 hours and you find different
Yes.
things. You're like,
I know. I feel like I have like a quarterly desk clean off appointment in my office where it's like, okay, I need to actually see what the desk looks like again. I just got all this stuff that's been piled up because I'm just constantly, running from my office up to the choir loft or down to the choir room or up to the front of the church. We got to put water in the pianos for the humidifier. What else is going on?
yeah,
It's just like so many things. So
it's amazing.
yeah, it's a lot to keep up with, but I love it. It's
Yeah.
it's a
So
great gig.
how many rehearsals would you do on an average week? Just, not
So
just
I
the
have,
masses, but the
yeah,
rehearsals.
all in a typical week. I have three of my ensembles rehearse on Wednesdays. So in the Wednesday afternoons, I have my chorister rehearsals right after those kids get out of school. We have that rehearsal in the afternoons, and then I come back in the evening for the main parish choir rehearsal, and then after that to the chamber choir, and then I come back on Thursdays for that handbell choir rehearsal. Um,
Yeah.
so four rehearsals throughout the week, and then of course we'll have I don't like to call it a warm up or a rehearsal, but I like to call it more like an extended warm up perhaps on those Sunday mornings when we sing as well, where we kind of go through a lot of the other things. A lot of it's just there's a routine you have to really develop and establish for a group to function that way, because it's not like when I was working at the school where I got 5 days in a row of rehearsals with these kids and we can kind of make some tangible progress here, and we'll go
Mm.
home over the weekend, they'll forget everything, come back on Monday, we'll relearn it and then try to make more progress. Here it's like the first time we sing everything at rehearsal, almost always it feels a little bit like a sight read sometimes, just because there's a week in between each one of the rehearsals. So sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you all forgot what that piece sounds like. Well, let's work on that.
Yeah. There's a very special approach to when you're working with an amateur choir versus a professional choir. And then there's some choir directors that are only working with really their choir. It's in certain large churches or the Anglican churches, you've got the boys' choir. So you just work with the same choir every single day and they're singing every day. And while that's a huge program to do, it's almost more simple because everyone is very musically adept. And then when you're working with people that are trying their best but aren't professional, then there's this level of patience and a way to teach them to engage and to help them remember for the next week and all this. And that's where I guess that element of your studies and your passion in education will really, really help, because there's a deep sort of gift in teaching amateurs. And I had the same comment said to me with my colleague, saying the choir that we work with, the symphony choir, not everyone can take on that role of teaching the voice part of very large works, sometimes to people who can't read music. And it's like, we are singing Beethoven today, let's go. And even though it feels sometimes like, there's a real gift in them and a gift in you to work together to create such incredible music from, like very less than musical backgrounds. So I just want to commend you on that and congratulate you. So that's, it's a big undertaking and lots of patience and love. So well done.
That's right. Well, and I always tell people too, like one of the easiest things for me when it comes to recruitment is that I'm not looking for the best singer in the parish. I'm not looking for the savant that has a degree in vocal performance or something. Because they don't exist. That's just not something that just walks into your parish necessarily. And again, if it does, you're super thankful because those people are awesome and they do a big, they give a big boost to your program. But for me, the most important thing is who are just good people. Who are the good people that can build up the community, the community that we have here. Because if I have really good people in community together, I truly feel that we can accomplish just about anything with the right amount of time. Because if you're willing to work and you have a good attitude and you've got that positive spirit that is infectious to other people, we all there kind of for the same gathered purpose. We want to be there together. But my job now is to make you great singers. Like, put the responsibility on me. I have the degrees to say that is my responsibility. So when I'm recruiting people into the choir at the parish, everybody just says the same thing. Oh, you don't want me to sing. I can't do it. I say, well, that's my job. Right? And my job is to teach you. If we don't sound good, that's not your fault. It's my fault, right? Well, it might be your fault a little bit, but the big part of the responsibility is on me for that. And my training allows me to take that on and not be intimidated by it. And so my hope is, my invitation to people is that, same thing, like don't be intimidated by this aspect that really isn't your burden to bear. As long as you're listening to me in rehearsal and you do what I'm telling you, like, we're going to have success. We're going to get there. And that's kind of a fun aspect that I didn't realize going into all of this either. There's a beautiful humility from a lot of people to step up into the parish choir that have never been in a choir before. And all of a sudden they can't, maybe, like you say, we're singing Beethoven today. I can't read music. Well, we're singing Beethoven anyway. Here we go. It's happening. And there's a great humility to be able to just put yourself in that scenario and say, all right, I guess I'm just going to try it. And we have a lot of great people at the parish that do so.
Yeah, it's great. It's so wonderful. So I guess we've brushed on all like the work that's involved. But is there any like big challenges that you're faced, or a lot of music directors, you may not want to specify your job, but a lot of challenges that music directors do face, that I guess the general congregation and the church community are not aware of? What could we bring to light to those people that just sit in the pews and enjoy the music on Sundays? So
Right. I think one of the first things is that in church music, you really do have to be a jack of all trades to really run a full-fledged program, right? So I not only have to know my disciplines in choral music, like I know, like that's really my specialty, is the choral music side of things. That's what my background and training primarily is in. My social media page really portrays a lot of me as an organist, but that's really kind of like, that's not my primary thing at all. Like I joke and I call the organ an occupational hazard. I do it because I have to. It's my job. I'm in the Catholic Church. So you do the organ, right? So I've really had to do a lot of work to learn how to be a good organist, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So I think the variety of disciplines musically you have to be at least competent in to be a good church music director is quite broad, because you have to have the choral background, you have to have the organ background, you have to have a little bit of independent vocal pedagogy. If you're working with those independent cantors, a little bit different than working with the full choir. But then, everybody wants some special music and stuff for the big liturgies. Like, we want the brass quintet to come in, or we want the string quartet to be there. I've arranged a lot of music for ensembles to come in and play with us, because I feel very strongly it's not the best thing to say, oh, hey, cello player, here's a 4-part hymnal, just play the bass line. They should have a cello part, right? So there's things like that. That's like, okay, musically speaking, you have to have that broad understanding of where things are at, and how to read all the clefs and things like that are going to be with all the instrumentation you're going to be working with, and how to rehearse those ensembles, what's important to those kind of people, what do I do with the instrumentalist versus the vocalist. All these little things are just there in the musical realm. But then let's zoom out of that. There's also the management aspect of it. I truly am a director of music. I'm not just a music coordinator where I'm picking out songs and stuff like that. I run this whole program, and that requires me to be in good communication with people. I have to be a good leader. I've really started to study that more in the last couple of years. What does good leadership look like? Because I think so much of our success musically really can't take off to the degree it should if I'm not a good leader, if I'm not leading the ensembles well, communicating clearly, giving them things with ample time to prepare and such. Like, there's so many little things like that. But then we go out even further, right? Outside of the management of the music ensembles and everything, we also have the parish at large, like the congregation. That's who I serve. Like that's the real place where the rubber meets the road. All the effort that I do, the beautiful music that we think we're doing in the loft, it it could be meaningless to the person in the pew if I'm not helping to educate them and support them and encourage them to be invested, involved, and be active participants in the liturgy. So I have to find ways to connect with them, because it's not like where I was at the school where I get these people that walk into my classroom and my job is to teach them. My job as the director of music is to find a way outside of a classroom setting to teach people something they may not have any interest in learning.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I sing the hymn? Why would we do Latin? What's this chant thing, and why do we have to do it? Why can't we sing all these other songs that I think are really fun? You have to find ways to connect with people, and yeah, it involves maybe sometimes some social politics and that sort of thing that can be difficult to manage, and interpersonal relationships. And again, that's why that leadership component has become so important to me, is that there's just so much that goes into everything that we do. And you can see in the different layers, right? Just the musical side of it. And then there's the ensemble management. And then there's the whole congregation, everybody coming together for worship and working with your pastor and the other people in the office. I mean, there's just so many things that just like come over. It's overwhelming. And I've joked before, maybe it's a blessing that I have ADHD. I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with ADHD, and it's like, maybe it takes somebody with ADHD to do all this crazy stuff, because I'm always bouncing all over the place and just trying to find ways to make it work. But we find a way to do it. And I think part of it's just the passion is there. I love what I do. I love the mission behind what I'm doing. And that always drives me to keep on going. But it is a lot to manage. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, exactly. As a caveat to everyone, I told him you don't have to tell them you have ADHD, but you went ahead and said you have ADHD.
Typical ADHD person thing to do. You don't have to do this. I did it. I'm sorry, it just came out.
Yeah, that's great. It does help. We have a lot of energy, and there's a lot of focus as you go into these things. So it's fantastic. Just briefly, then, as like you are educating the congregation, but how could the community support the music director just to help things flourish? Like, just a few aspects maybe to boost up that music director, because then he boosts the music program.
Yeah, the first thing I think is feedback, and obviously, everybody wants to hear. Like as a music director, I think it's a universal experience. You walk down from the choir loft, or you come down from your music area, and somebody's waiting to talk to you. Every single music director knows how this interaction goes. It's not going to be fun. So I think the first thing is, like, if you feel appreciation, share it, because half the time, and more than half the time, people generally speaking will only stop to talk to the music director after mass if they're upset about something. Very rarely is it that a music director gets approached by somebody to say, thank you so much for the beautiful music, that was wonderful, it really impacted my experience of worship, whatever. I think that feedback element is really helpful, to give some confirmation to the good things that people are doing. And at the same time too, if there is something that's negative, like that didn't work for us, or that was really difficult, whatever, I really like that feedback too, because that for me is not a personal attack. It's not. Sometimes it might be framed that way, but it really isn't. But it's just people that want to pray and they're struggling to do so, right? So if my job is to help facilitate their prayer through the music that we offer, if they're telling me that this is not working or they don't like what's happening, that's just information about how I need to pivot, what I need to do next to try and educate more, how to be more helpful, or maybe just to say, yeah, we just don't do that. We're not ready, right? So feedback is good, always to be in a positive light, even if it's a negative thing, like to have that kind of that positive that good Christian charity that suddenly seems lacking all of a sudden when we start talking about church music. It's it's quite remarkable how quickly that subsides when we're talking about sacred music. But yeah, I think good feedback is important. And that element of humility that I mentioned as well too. A lot of the parish singers that have come into the choir, that have this humility of like, I'm just going to give this a try, and we're going to go for it. Like I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle for anybody to enter more deeply into the mass in general. Right, is that deep spirit of humility and prayer. But that comes with a couple different flavors, and I think that's one of them there too.
Yeah, no, it's really true. And sometimes I like you choose a different hymn, and if my friends were at the mass or something, they'll come up and they'll say, "I really liked that hymn. That was that one you did it." You're like, "Oh, okay, that hit well then," because you may have found something beautiful, and you're like, "Let's try it at this mass," and then yeah, it's wonderful to get feedback on that, because you go, "Okay, one hymn didn't, no one mentioned it, but this hymn they did mention it. That's okay.
Right.
That's really great." Yeah, absolutely. So recently I found out that your master's thesis was on, let me get this correct, active participation through metrical hymnody,
Yeah.
which really sparked my interest. And I would love you to just delve into that. Like, was there sort of a process to get to that topic? And yeah, just in a, I guess, a very general way, what is that about?
Right. Yeah. Well, so the active participation is like the hot button topic of the Second Vatican Council, and what everybody brings out from that now. And so everything's about active participation. So my first interest in the topic was quite simply to define what that actually means, and not just say active participation. We're going to say that term in a vacuum and just think that it means we make a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
It just, there's not much definition to that. And
And
so that was
doing,
really important to
lots
me.
of lots
Yeah,
of doing.
exactly. Yeah, it's not even active participation. It's just active doing.
Yeah.
There has to be something done, right? So I think that was my first area of interest with it. But then just recognizing like the, the culture of sacred music in a lot of parishes has abandoned so much of what I think is really helpful for musicians and non-musicians to be able to do really well. And so I find that metrical hymnody is one of the best ways to encourage congregational singing, because it's basically made as an accommodation for the non-musician to participate and sing. And so for me, when I study the church documents that talk about active participation and what it's supposed to mean and what we're supposed to be actively participating in, I find that a lot of the music that we use really isn't good for promoting active participation, because a lot of like the what we could maybe term the classic contemporary music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s that came
Mm.
out in the wake of Vatican II is a lot of like the folk music with a lot of syncopated rhythms and kind of recycled chord progressions, and then there'll be things like, in one verse there's this rhythm, but then the next verse there's a different rhythm, and then the third verse there's actually a rest there. And so you see these tiny little markings in the score, like, okay, there's a rest here for this verse, and then there's some dashed ties that say you're going to tie this note across here, and it's confusing. And my dad was a United States Marine Corps for 20 years. And so he's a soldier, and he's not much a musician. He always tells me, "Son, I don't know where you got your musical ability from." Well, he knows it's from my mom's side of the family, but he's like, "You didn't get that from me." But he told me once, like I was sitting next to him at mass, and he opened up the book. He's like, "What does this mean?" He knows that I know music, but he doesn't. It's like, what's, and he's talking about these extra little markings on the page. He's trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out. And so that was kind of like another thing that just kind of sat in the back of my head about, okay, how do we really promote active participation in the song of the congregation? And metrical hymnody is by far and above, easily the best thing to get people going on a melodic piece of music for the
Mm.
congregation to sing. So from there, it was really easy to kind of make that point, and then do some musical analysis of all these things, kind of comparing and contrasting your typical metrical hymn with a lot of the things that people have sung over the past, we'll say 50 or so years, that's come out as new music that's supposed to be for the people and for active participation. They kind of heard this gospel of active participation is going to be reached by bringing the music of our culture that we're more used to hearing and bringing that into mass, and that's going to do it. And I think it's actually killed our ability to do things, especially in the United States. I know in Great Britain, you guys have a much better tradition of like sight singing. You do much better with sight singing than I think we do. One of my friends did his some master's work across the pond there, and that was his first comment that he made. He's like, "Wow, they sight read so much better than we do. Like, it's unbelievable." Americans, I think most people like don't have a concept of doing it. It's quite
Okay.
like, of course, it's a difficult thing. Any musician talk about, oh, sight reading scary. Yes, it is. Okay, we all know that sort of thing. But especially in the context of what I've seen, so in my time working with this, it's like, wait, the dots on the page are supposed to help me? I had no idea. Like it's like that kind of thing, you know. But that's what metrical hymnody does, is it teaches you to trust what's on the page in front of you, so that it's actually useful when you open up to a new hymn or something.
That's so great. And I really appreciate you mentioning Britain. I'm Australian, but I was educated in the British way. So yes, sight reading was just a given. If you can't, you're not going to get a job. So you need to do that.
Right.
And I really, really appreciate that, because people can hand me anything. And I'm not the best sight reader. There's so many amazing people out there. But yeah, I'm not scared. And you would be given something on Sunday and like, oh, I wish you sent this to me, but anyway, we'll do it. So
Here we go.
yeah, and that's how it goes. You might have 30 minutes to have a look. And yeah, mentioning so when I saw that your thesis was about metrical hymnody, it takes me right to the beautiful hymns of England, because I'm based in Europe, like Portugal, and each country has a style of sacred music and hymnody. So in Portugal, it's a certain sound, and it's not what I would call metrical, or what's the word, like you can't anticipate what's coming next, and but that's the style that's developed. In France, it's got a very specific sound, and in the UK, that's what I was brought up with, that's what I worked in, and I miss it very much, is this beautiful metrical hymnody, and then also the Germans do it also. But one of the situations with that is that often a lot of the hymns are Protestant, and it comes to like a question I've been contemplating recently is, can we reconcile singing Protestant hymns in Catholic liturgies? And I would love to know your thoughts on this, and yeah, because it's actually something I was thinking of in the last month, and then I thought, perfect, so we can talk about it.
Yeah. Bring this guy in. So first, just to give a short answer, yes, there's room for those things in there, and maybe the evidence for that is quite simply, what have we pushed into the mass already? Instead of using Protestant metrical hymns, we've provided a lot of bad Catholic music instead. So I think if we're willing to put bad Catholic music out in our liturgies, we certainly should be able to put in some good Protestant music into our liturgies. So that's, maybe the short answer. The longer answer would be this: is that that there's room for it. You have to study it a little bit, though, because there's some things where there are texts that maybe don't seem to have anything theologically deficient about them in terms of Catholic theology and use in the liturgy on the surface, but when you study a little bit more, there's something there. Or there's even things like, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." Oh, what a great hymn. Also the anthem of the Reformation. I don't know if I want to sing the other team's fight song, like that just seems kind of like, I don't know, that's just not the right. So you have to be careful about those kind of things, but there's a place for it. And part of this is that, this is one of the innovations of Protestant hymnody that developed, is because it was for the congregation, right? So that was a turning point for a lot of the Protestant hymnody, whereas the Catholic hymn tradition really comes from the Liturgy of the Hours. And we don't share this same tradition. So as we're in this Novus Ordo realm now of the 20th century and 21st century now we're kind of looking into this, and the body of repertoire, the bulk of the body of repertoire, is in the Protestant churches. And there's some great things out there. I think there's some wonderful hymns that have been written that can certainly serve our purpose as well. But one of the things that I like about what our parish has now, we use the Source and Summit Missal. And one of my favorite things about this resource is that so much of the hymnody comes from the divine office. And so there are oodles of texts that are in this digital platform you can get with Source and Summit, where I can have, like, for example, our parish, Saints Anne and Joachim. Do you know any hymns about Saints Anne and Joachim, Grace?
No.
No, because why would you,
Should
right?
I?
So if I'm a publisher, no, you shouldn't. That's okay. If I'm a publisher of a hymnal, right, I have to make decisions about what I put into it and what I don't. You can't put everything in there. You can't put every saint's feast day in there. And if I'm going to put something in there, it's probably going to be something, the bigger saints, right? Maybe one of the apostles or something will get a special song in there or whatnot, but not typically like those little saints there. Well, because we have all these beautiful texts from the Divine Office hymns that are uploaded in the Source and Summit platform, I actually have 2 hymns in there that I can pull up at the click of a button about St. Joachim and St. Anne. So when we have our big parish feast day, we want to celebrate that solemnity in our parish every year. I have 2 hymns I can pull up and sing directly about those 2 saints. Otherwise, what does every single parish do on the Saint feast day or All Saints Day? For all the saints who from their oh yeah, it's a lovely tune, but it's not that specific. It's like for all the saints, yeah, but it's just about these 2, right? Like it's nice to be able to get that specific, and you can because we have this ability with the Divine Office text. So I love that we're getting to a point where we can start to feature those more and reclaim a little bit of what we've had. But that still has to come with these tunes, which is the other thing I think is quite brilliant about Source and Summit, is that you can take a text and go through the library of tunes of long meter and be able to utilize those. And that happens in the Divine Office as well. You have a long meter hymn text. You can sing it to whatever long meter hymn tune you'd like. And for a lot of people, that means they learn one and they use it for everything. And that's a functional use of metrical hymnody. So I think there's so many smart things about that have developed in the Protestant tradition, but don't have to be completely foreign to ours. And I'll say that with a caveat as well as to say that's a good thing, and we can and should use it, but also not to the detriment of our own traditions that we also should be promoting too, and the use of polyphony and of chant and whatnot as well. I don't want metrical hymnody to come in and completely replace that, right? Like I want to supplement and give opportunities for robust congregational singing, for people to kind of sink their teeth into something. And there's a lot of great Protestant hymnody out there that does that. I think, praise to the Lord. Praise to the Lord, the Almighty. I mean, people trumpet that out, right? That's a great hymn. And so I think there's a great place for that to be had. And there's also lots of lessons to be learned in some of these texts, the history that goes back. You look at a tune like Grosser Gott, like the German hymns, right? That's Holy God, we praise thy name. That's the Te Deum hymn, right? That goes all the way back to our ancient Latin liturgical text and the chanted text of the Te Deum. So, hey, let's do this Holy God, we praise thy name, but let's also do the Te Deum, right? Let's also bring this piece of the puzzle back into our equation. Let's give a holistic approach to our liturgies that really does serve the congregation in terms of their participation with the hymnody, but then also offer them the beautiful heritage and traditions of our church.
Yeah. So you've summed it up so beautifully. And I think, just to add on, that text is probably the most important thing to analyse carefully, like you said at the start. And secondly, what my colleagues here in Portugal said, it's like you guys had a head start when Novus Ordo Mass came in, because we had like a few hundred years of composing, where countries like Portugal had to start composing from the 70s, and they did have some very beautiful priests who were composers and did do like literally created a culture of singing in the vernacular here. So it's really, really interesting. And of course, they have very old hymns as well, but the English-speaking world really did have a head start with this copious amounts of Protestant hymns, and we can sift through and see what is really suitable. And also because they use some of our music as well, because there are so many levels of the Anglican Church and their concept of the Eucharist, and et cetera, et cetera. So they're using some of our things, and we're using some of theirs. So thank you so much for delving into that. It's really, really hearty discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
And because of my initial training, initial early professional training was in an Anglican choir, so we were doing Anglican, the English hymnody, and then the psalmody as well. And so that's that sense of rhythm and flow of it is really, really ingrained in me. But moving on, I guess the reason I know you and came across you is your social media. And I think maybe a year ago, I saw you on social media, either conducting or playing the organ, and there was like so much energy to it. And then ever since then, you're just so regular, you're educating, you're just providing beyond your parish to this like much wider world. I think like 50 or 40, 50,000 people are following you on Instagram, or is it Facebook, one or the other. And I just really wanted to know like why you jumped on the social media. Was there a start? Yeah, and how it's flourished so much.
Yeah. So back when I was teaching at the school, I got my start on TikTok actually, because in the midst of the pandemic, we went to virtual learning. And I don't know if you know this, but it's really hard to teach choir virtually when you never meet. So we were at home, we weren't doing much, and the kids were getting disconnected. And I just, so much of what we do is a great connector, right? In the musical world, there's so much connection that we share in this. And so I was missing a lot of that. And I was like, well, all the kids are on this tiki-taki thing. Let me figure out what the heck is going on and see what it is. And so I hopped on and tried to understand some of the trends and all kinds of things like that were going on. A lot of it went over my head. But I tried a couple of silly videos just to kind of have fun. And one of them went really viral pretty early on. And I suddenly found myself with a following almost overnight of about 5,000 people. And I was like, oh, wow, like, here I am. I've got people on this. Oh, okay, cool. I don't know what to do with this. But I got connected with some other TikTok teachers and stuff like that. So I started posting content about being a choir teacher and just having fun with that. And it kind of blossomed into just this kind of authentic, like, here's just me. Like, I just do the choir thing. I love what I do. Here's some fun stuff. Here's what my kids, enjoy. That sort of, like, it just kind of was a fun thing. So I did that all throughout the rest of my time at the school. And then when I came over to the church, maybe for like 2 weeks, I tried making some like church related content. And it just, when you get into a niche on social media, like, it's hard to get out of it. So I was
Yeah.
like, you know what, I don't think people are interested in this, and it's just, I think this has served its time and I'm done. So I left it in 2021, and didn't really pick it up again until about 2023ish or so, 23, 24. And I just said, all of a sudden I'm doing a lot more stuff in the sacred music world, and my professional pedigree was kind of coming up. I've got a lot more people asking for my assistance on things and asking for my input. And I was like, well, maybe I should start sharing more of my music that I'm writing and all that kind of stuff too, which, requires a little bit of that marketing thing going on. I have to kind of be able to market myself. And so I was like, let me just create a page. And my main goal was just to connect with other music directors and to try to, make connections and see if I could help myself to sell some music and that sort of thing. And I assumed that people wouldn't be interested in content creation from a church musician. And I've been so blown away and happy to see how wrong I was, because people are really about this. And it's been so much fun because, again, like, most of my content, it's nothing more than hit record and just do what we're doing. Just we're rehearsing, we're at mass or whatever. And I've also jumped into the realm of creating some fun videos and stuff like that too, and having some different trending audios or something like that to supplement. But most of what I do is just hit record and just do what we do, and it's just a joy to be able to share that, because it's just like this conversation here. I love getting a chance to talk with you, Grace, because we're two sacred musicians that really understand the passion we both have for not only sacred music in general, but for what we're trying to promote with sacred music. It's just such an invigorating conversation. And it feels similar to that, just to be able to share that on a regular basis on my pages, because I'm passionate about this, and I have this big following now that's similarly passionate, or at least kind of interested or curious about what's going on here. And that's really edifying. I think that's a really cool thing to see, that people are interested in this, and that there's enough interest that like I say, I just hit 50,000 followers the other day on Facebook, and I can't believe there's 50,000 people who've been like, yeah, sure, look, that's wild to me, and it's exciting. So I think it's a sign of the times too, that there's a lot of people interested in, especially the traditional realm of sacred music, that in a lot of ways has been abandoned. But we see all kinds of data and statistics, my own following count being one of them, that people are interested and want more of the beauty of our tradition. And so I am happy to keep on sharing it.
Yeah. A friend, colleague of mine here in Europe, he points to me. He's a bit older than me. He's like, "You're the next generation. Like, you are like, there's a generation well beyond under me as well now." But like, that point is, I felt that I sort of discovered this passion, not just doing it, but like this passion in it. And then sort of getting a feel for it, I realized I feel like the whole world kind of came at that, well, from about 2021 or 2022. It was like God ignited it in me, and it felt like it sort of ignited the whole world. And you saw all these Instagram pages popping up, and you know, and then you came back on the scene, and it's like exploded, and it's just so exciting. We're just this like whole rejuvenation, yeah, this momentum that's being carried through. And it's so exciting to see like who it reaches, because it's not just Catholics. And I wanted to know with your page, is it Catholics, or are you getting like a very broad range of people interested?
No, very much so. Yeah, it's a broad range. Yeah, I get a lot of people, like we were just talking about, so much of like that traditional metrical hymnody with a big organ that's really firmly rooted in the Protestant tradition. So I have a lot of Anglican and Lutheran and even Methodist followers that are very avid followers and enjoy what I do, just because it's a lot of the stuff that they already know. They've been doing it better than we have for quite some time, so they really enjoy that sort of thing too. And so I don't shy away from being Catholic one bit. I don't. In fact, a friend of mine was just saying that his fiance is a pastor and having some struggles. And I said, well, why don't you just come to the Catholic Church? Well, I have no problem inviting people into the Catholic Church. I don't care if you're a pastor at a Lutheran church or whatever. I'll invite you in. Let's make this happen, right? But at the same time, too, there's a great, I don't know, a nice ecumenism that isn't always seen on Facebook. And I certainly see the opposite side of that, too. I posted something about the use of Latin in the liturgy, and it started to circulate in Protestant circles or something, because all of a sudden, just like I got told all kinds of stuff about myself I didn't know from the comment sections of those videos. And yeah, that'll happen too, of course. But by and large, it's a really nice thing to see how our shared traditions can help to bring us together a little bit closer too.
Yeah, and I guess even those maybe negative things that circulate do allow people to think, and not everyone who comments is actually listening. The majority are actually just quietly observing, and yeah, you allow them to think, so you don't take the negativity too much to heart, because you're on the right track, and we both know.
Right. And not only that, but I have a little bit of this isn't the most charitable thing of me, but I also don't mind it one bit when people start talking negatively in my comment sections, because typically what that means is it spurs more comments to come and fight with each other, and that's good for engagement. So it's a win-win for me. If you want to come argue on my page, hey, great, sounds good. I'll reap the benefit. Fine with me.
Comment section is open.
That's right. Have at me. Do your worst.
It's great though. It allows for education and the algorithm, so you're on the right path.
That's right.
And I guess to wrap up, because you're in an airport, you'll have to catch your next flight. I would really like to know, what could you impart to younger sacred musicians or students that are considering working in sacred music? What's your piece of wisdom that you could impart to them?
I think the number one thing that I tell people when it comes to developing in sacred music, and really this applies just about anywhere, is you have to give yourself freedom to fail. I think that so many people, like especially in our modern age, you turn on Spotify or you go to YouTube, and you see and hear a lot of performances that have been so cleanly edited, and there's so much that we listen to on a daily basis that's just perfect. And so we have this expectation, I think, of ourselves, that we have to immediately, the very first time we try something, do it perfectly, just like the recording. And if we don't do it that way, we've somehow failed. And that's not true. So first of all, we have to allow ourselves the grace. We have to allow ourselves that freedom to fail and be okay with that. But then like the next step from that is that you have to take your failure as an assessment, and it's not a personal judgment. And especially singers struggle with this. I find instrumentalists don't, because if I tell you, okay, like this note didn't go very good on your clarinet, you go, oh, your embouchure wasn't very good, or you hit the wrong button here, right? There's little things like that where it's a very tangible and quickly you can quickly address the difficulty there. Whereas with the singer, it's like, okay, that note was sharp. Did I hit the sharp button here? No, I just sang it sharp, right? There's a little bit more of that personal thing in there where it's like, I did this wrong. So singers especially have to get out of that realm of it was good or it was bad. We have to find the tangible things in between that really give us that concrete detail to show progress. And this is, this is a bit of an aside, but it's one of my soapboxes. This is part of why men don't do music, especially singing. This is why a lot of men don't sing, is because we're hardwired as more the box thinker. And
Mm.
so the example I used all the time when I was teaching in high school is that a lot of kids, a lot of boys, they want to go and do football and they want to do the weightlifting because they can see their progress so clearly. And if they go in the weight room on one day and they're doing bench press at 135 pounds one week, but then the next week they go back and it's 140 pounds and they did it, like they can see I made 5 pounds of progress week to week, and that you can put it in the box and see it so clearly. And if you tell a boy like, oh no, you just kind of, sing it like this, like here's the note, here's where it's supposed to be, where is that for them? You have to get so much more specific and line out these details for people so that we can progress and not become just this emotional wasteland of I am not good enough. And that happens so much for so many people. And this is why so many people will come up to me and say, oh, I can't sing. A lot of times I say, oh, BS, you can sing. Don't give me that. Yes, of course you can. And that's a great turnaround. So a lot of that's just that sort of encouragement. So number one, give yourself freedom to fail. The other thing I would say is that you have to be grounded in something outside of yourself. And for me, so much of what I do is based on study of the liturgical documents. I don't consider them anything more, and of course more than this, but like at its root, at its core, these are the instruction manual for our job. Right? Sacrosanctum Concilium, Musica Sacra, the general instruction of the Roman Missal, all these different texts that have been written by the church and all the popes, the encyclicals and things like that have been written. These are all instruction manual documents for our work. And almost nobody gets them when they start up in a Catholic position. And so if you want to be grounded in something outside of yourself, that's a great, like tangible thing right there to do. But then of course, high and above that is prayer. Just having that time of relationship with God and being able to, in silence, go and talk to him, go be in the Eucharistic adoration. If you want to be a good church musician, go pray. That I struggled a little bit with this, truth be told. I'm a get up, go do stuff kind of guy, right? And so my pastor actually instituted some kind of staff time of prayer for us this past year. And at first it was just like a 45-minute period of time on Mondays to kind of get the week started. And I was like, okay, that's not too invasive to my life. I'm okay with that. But as we got into it further and further, he started to encourage more prayer to the point where now we have daily prayer as a part of our staff time together. And at first I was like, Father, I got a lot of things to do. You're going to tell me, I mean, thanks for the opportunity to pray and stuff, but like, I just don't think we can do it. And it's like St. Francis de Sales or somebody in that realm, one of the great saints said, if you have time, go pray for an hour a day. And if you're busy, go pray for 2 hours a day. It's like when you're busy and you have all this work to do, you've got to be grounded in prayer. And my hesitancy was unfounded. And I have found so much joy and energy and wisdom and even just peace that sometimes doesn't come in the middle of the workday from doing that. And so having time in prayer really does have an impact on what you're able to do across the rest of the way. And I even just love the opportunity. Like I know on Wednesdays I have my 3 choir rehearsals coming up later that day. So when we go into prayer time there, a lot of times that's just my time to pray to, for, and about the musicians that I work with. And it makes the rehearsal experience so much better. I feel like my heart is so much more lifted up when I'm so spiritually and emotionally invested in the people that I'm working with. And then when we sing together and they sound as good as they do, I mean, it's just like, I love it. It's so good. So there's so many good things to come from that. So if I had to just say 2 things, I think those would be the 2, is give yourself freedom to fail and pray, 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 pray.
Yeah, you are so on the money there. That sense of prayer, and through prayer we have humility, and it removes some of the ambition as well, and we just sort of get absorbed more into the right aspects of the vocation. And I felt that with myself, and I wish someone told me this before all the sacred music, going, you put 1 hour aside for prayer as a young student, and God gives you back so much more with your day. And you
Right.
know, you're like, yeah, I have to practice 4 hours today, so you're freaking out, and I have to do the essays, and I have to teach, and all these things, and realizing actually God will give you back. Maybe that essay will just come from the Holy Spirit or something. So that's
Hmm.
something I would really, really stress. And thank you so much for sharing that. So that comes to the end of this interview. I would love to have you back on in the future. Your
I'd be delighted.
enthusiasm, your energy, you feel it across social media, you feel it here as we're talking, and it's just infectious. So thank you so much for carving out this time to do this interview with me, Patrick.
It's my sincere pleasure, Grace. I'm super excited to get to share this passion I have for sacred music in any way possible. And so thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you today and get to chat with you a little bit as well. Getting to know you is absolutely fantastic as well. All the great work you're doing too. It's fun to see, like you were saying earlier, I'm not alone. And I think one of the things that a lot of us, more traditionally minded church musicians struggle with is that we feel a little bit like, no, I'm not crazy. All of you are. And there's a lot less of that now because there's people that we can connect with and kind of build each other up a little bit more, and we see other people promoting the same thing. So hats off to you and all the wonderful work that you're doing with the Musica Sacra Project. I'm happy to be on anytime.
Thank you so much. On behalf of myself and Patrick, I wish all of the viewers here a very holy Lent. Thank you so much, and God bless.